Let's welcome everyone to Sunday Sentiments
in the battle against COVID-19.
Almost people try to justify what he did.
Charged.
Of course, this is a hate crime.
Saved. That's a very traumatic event.
Wow, I mean, it's a violation of human rights.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Our topic today is about the rising domestic violence rates in Sweden, which seem to have caught the eye of European citizens. So I'll just share a news screen. So women in Sweden, I don't know, can everyone see that? Yeah, so there's been a big wave of increased violence against women, and a lot of women in Sweden are saying they don't feel safe. So I just want to first give a little background of domestic violence facts, which are global, not just specific to Sweden. So as Four Wings is an organization that works alongside women who've suffered or survived abuse and trauma. The facts are: one, usually a man has a close relationship to whoever she experiences this gender abuse from. Two, many cases go unreported, so we don't really have a true picture. It's just an indication. Number three, domestic abuse is still a stigma for many globally. Number four, it's a taboo subject or seen as a family issue in many countries. Number five, there are many repeat victims. So if a woman is a victim of abuse, it's not going to be just a one-off usually. Number six, domestic abuse usually escalates. So it can start with a verbal and then slowly escalates into physical abuse, and many times ends up in murder or death of the person being abused. So Sweden and Scandinavia have historically been known, and also maybe Germany, Catherine can tell us, as pretty safe places and really top for gender equality. So this is why this was quite a surprise, the rising numbers. And a few factors have been mentioned in this article, and a couple of them that I would like to discuss today is: one, the imported values. There's a section there about imported values from migrants who come into Liverpool, into Sweden, and maybe their home countries. Women don't have as many rights as the country, their host country. And then another one, there are several reasons given, but I picked two. Another one is the pandemic. Has the pandemic put women at risk? So I want to hear from the panel. If there's some people in Scandinavia who can give us their opinions, and then there are people from Kenya and from other parts of the world. What do you think about these imported values and just gender-based abuse in general? We'll start with Shakira, who's from Denmark, please, and then Keshi.
Yeah, it was about the second point that you made, that one of the reasons they stated might be the reason for the rise of domestic abuse was the pandemic in itself. I just feel like that actually does make sense, because people have been cooped up all this time. A lot of people don't have any way to okay, that sounds kind of like an excuse, not really, but they don't have any way to like get out, meet new people. So now they have more time with this one specific person that they have to see day in and day out. I can definitely see how that could lead to people getting more aggressive and quickly escalating, because it can't really escalate if you're not together. But if you're together 24/7, the escalation is going to go very quickly, and you're going to go from somebody being annoyed at you because you're always together. People are going to get on each other's nerves to suddenly somebody putting their hands on you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Shakira. I did read something around the pandemic and the rising rates of abuse. A lot of the reasons given are, a man is at home and and told he's lost his job and there's no one to take it out on, all that frustration and anger. And if they were already, let's say, verbally abusive before, then it escalates. And also this thing of women, when things are not under lockdown, they have the escape to go to work, to go to other places. But if they're at home 24/7 with a perpetrator, then of course, you know, there's a trigger for some of these perpetrators and they become more violent. So thank you, Shakira. Yes, Keshi.
Yes, while it is indeed true that domestic violence around the world has risen because of the pandemic. Actually, it's being called the shadow pandemic. We have to look at Sweden and look at their approach to COVID-19 situation. They didn't have a lockdown, so nobody was forced to be home. They moved on, they went to work. So really you can't say that the pandemic in that sense has had an impact because people are at home, because Sweden didn't have that approach. They also had that, anyway, everybody knows their approach where they were free even to up to 500 people until recently to meet, and people are just going about their life, going to cafes. But some people have said that it's not the lockdown itself that has contributed to the rise in domestic violence, but the pandemic, that mind frame, people get their stress, and maybe some people lost their jobs. They may have jobs may have been open and people are going to work, but many people lost their jobs, not because they are not home because they were told to stay home, but they lost their jobs. So economy and money problems always bring always a factor in problems within partnerships, domestic partnerships, and can contribute to domestic violence. And another reason also could be that they are being reported more because if people are now at home, they have lost their jobs, they can hear domestic violence taking place and reporting it to police. Before, probably people are at home. So if a man was at home, I don't know how that correlates, but also, what did I want to say? Something about Sweden. Yeah, I'll say it later when I remember. But that was my point, that we can't use really COVID because they had a different approach.
Yes, so thank you, Keshi. When we're referring to Sweden specifically with regards to the rise in domestic abuse, yes, that's a factor to consider, that they didn't really have a lockdown. Life went on as usual. So maybe it did contribute to rising abuse in other countries, but maybe this is not a factor for Sweden. So how about imported values? Does anyone want to give us their opinion on that? Yes, Shiro, thank you.
Sorry. On imported values, I tend to agree to an extent, but I would really, really like to hear later from Shamsa on this, because as an African woman, first of all, we're in a country where women are still fighting for their rights and laws are still being put in place to protect women. We just had a discussion the other day in the panel about a man who threw a woman out of the 12th floor because she refused to have sex with him. So I'm in a country where women are viewed as second-class citizens. Women are viewed as property, as possession. So now if people migrate from countries like mine and others, maybe in Asia, that's why I wanted to hear from Shamsa also, Africans, and they migrate there, they're not going to overnight change and have the same values as people who live there, people who've been born there. They're not going to view women as equals because they're not used to that. They were not raised that way. So this is something that will take a long time for them to come to appreciate, that where they moved to is different. A woman is not a sex object. A woman has rights. I'm not trying to say that all African men or Asian or Muslim men are like that. I don't want to stereotype, but I do believe that there is some truth in that, because I also watched a documentary once about an area in Stockholm where even women were afraid to walk because of the men around there. They were very aggressive to women, and women do not even want to leave their homes, and they are in their own country in Sweden. They are not in Kenya or Nigeria or somewhere. So those immigrants are causing the women to feel unsafe in their own country. I'm very willing and ready to be corrected on this, actually, but that's just what I think. I tend to agree to an extent with the imported values.
Thank you, Shiro, for giving your point as someone from Kenya, where you say that women have much less rights, much less, and viewed as property in Kenya, and that you strongly believe that part of the problem is imported values by migrants. I would just say a comment that was made in the article is that this kind of narrative is also used by, nationalists. And it says that if we just make it an immigrant issue, then the problem is being diminished, because there was already violence against women. And if we just point a finger and say it's the immigrants, then you're not actually looking at the issue itself, which is women all over the world just being unsafe from men, whatever their background is. But does someone want to comment on what Shiro has said about imported values?
Shiko, can I just add something?
Yeah.
I was going to point out that the topic is rising, which means that there was domestic violence or violence against women even before, but now the cases have risen. So what is the cause? It's not that it wasn't there, because we know that violence against women is a worldwide problem, but in some places it's more than others.
Okay, thank you, Shiro, for pointing that out. I think Keshi wants to respond to that.
I want to say regarding, imported values. I once recently saw a video of a man, I think he was in Turkey, and he was beating his wife on the street, and people were looking and even recording it. And it actually brought a lot of anger to women, because people are wondering, why are people looking on and no one is interfering? Nobody's saving this woman, but people are recording it. So this brought to mind what I saw recently, that Turkey has come out of the Istanbul Convention, ironically named the Istanbul Convention, and that is the Council of Europe on preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence. Their president recently removed Turkey from that body, European body. So when people have that kind of mentality that a woman can be beaten in the street and nobody, people are just filming or looking on, and people are afraid even to go. There were men in the group. These men were afraid even to go. I don't even know if they were afraid to go, or they thought this is a domestic issue, it has no concern to me. So when people have those kind of values and then they come with them to other places, of course, then that's the kind of values they are going to continue having. But I would also say that this is not the only issue in that has made this rise, or I don't know how to say that one, this spike in domestic violence in Sweden, because we have a woman who is the head of shelters in Sweden saying that this issue, people have become like they are fatigued. There's a fatigue around this subject. People are tired of talking about violence, that it's always been on the agenda but not addressed properly. So it's more words than anything. So this is a point I wanted to bring, that sometimes such subjects become tiring to people's ears, so they don't want to address them. So because it's not being addressed, then it keeps raising and raising, not just among immigrants or migrants, but also among Swedes themselves. So society has to look at how they handle such issues. Are they just talking the big talk and doing nothing? Because I know Sweden actually has an action plan against domestic violence. But this woman says it's always been, so far, it's more words than anything. But words are stronger, I think, than before. So this could be a factor, this kind of fatigue that people have about this subject in all communities?
Yeah, thank you, Keshi. We know about this fatigue ourselves because we work in this area, and we know that it's an unpopular cause. Even to get funding for this kind of work in the UK it's an unpopular cause. People don't want to address it. It's whatever, it's a migrant problem, it's a developing country problem, so we don't want to look at it and look within and accept that yes, there is something going on. I also want to say that, and don't forget also, when people speak out, just like with Black Lives Matter, when the Sarah Everard case happened and it became a global thing, more women started speaking out about the sexual assault. So maybe we need to talk about it more so that it stops being a taboo subject, whether that's in Kenya or in Sweden. We need to start talking about this openly and campaign around it. So it's not just a family issue. Like somebody said there, it doesn't concern you, so don't get involved. That's really the wrong attitude, whatever country you're from. So we have Catherine, then Marie-Claire, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that that migrant background has nothing to do with it, but I don't like that narrative, because one thing is for sure, domestic violence happens in every demographic, amongst rich and poor. It doesn't matter. It just happens everywhere. And what I just wanted to mention, in Germany as well, of course, 80% of domestic violence cases are women. Every third woman has in her lifetime had some sort of violence or sexual violence against her. Every fourth woman has been a victim of domestic violence. What I'd just like to mention, there's two initiatives in Germany that I thought were really helpful. One is called, which was November 2019. It might have been sort of interrupted with COVID a little bit, but the initiative is called, translated, Stronger Than Violence. And they had billboards and information stands in shopping centers, in town centers. It was a huge campaign. To inform foremost about the type of domestic violence. I lately I heard an actually very terrible discussion about strangling women during sex, and it seems to happen very often, and some women don't even know that this is not normal, that, you know, they're being told that's part of the fun. So part of this campaign, Stronger Than Violence, is to inform about types of violence, educate women and people how to confront that type of violence and how to report it, and campaign for a society that picks up on it and speaks out about and against violence, and promotes for people to understand what bodies can help, where to go to help. But then there is another campaign which I find even, or another change in law that I find even more important. And unfortunately in English, the slogan doesn't rhyme, but it's called basically the person who hits has to move out. And this is about giving the police more powers to remove the traitor from the home. So, because often it's the women who flee the home, and then they have to take the kids and they have to go and find a shelter, and their whole life is thrown up into the air. Whereas in this, with this, the police can go in and remove the traitor and leave the woman and the children or in their normal environment, which I find is very, very important, so that the victim doesn't take all the consequences of that separation. And the last bit of it, which of course we need, there's a strong push to work with the traitors to make them understand what they're doing, what the consequences are, and help them to overcome that type of aggression.
Thank you, Catherine, for your points. One of the key ones I find, and which I do have personal experience about, is when a perpetrator is left in the home and the woman has to leave. That happened to me as well. The police were called into my home by a neighbor, so they knew that there was a violent situation there, and they took me out because they said, do you have anywhere to go? And I said, I don't have anywhere to go. And they said, well, we can't remove the children from a roof over their head, so, you know, do you want to live with them? Where will you go if you live with them? And I have to say, you know, when you're in that situation, because I'd almost been killed, yeah, I wasn't thinking through to say, why don't you take him out? You know, the neighbor has called you to say somebody's being abusive. Why don't you take him out? I didn't even think that through. That didn't go through my mind. And because all I cared about was at that moment that my kids are not in the streets, you know, with me, because I really didn't have anyone. I was new in Liverpool. I had no support network, and I really did not know where I was going to go that night. So you see how the lack of training by police can really put women in a precarious position. And also that policemen are men. And I'm sorry, I do believe that not all of them, but quite a number of men have this, policemen have this thing of, well, what did she do? She may have done something, or maybe they are perpetrators themselves. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all these women saying that their experiences with the police have not been great. So thank you for that, Catherine.
I want to point out that in your situation, it's important to point out that those were not imported values at play there.
Yeah.
Just so that people,
my case was not imported values. This was a Scandinavian man. You know, I'm sure a lot of Scandinavian women would feel, you know, I'm in a safe space, whatever. This was a Scandinavian man, and it happened to me, and the system allowed him to stay in the house, and I had to leave my children with somebody who had just almost killed me, which is just bizarre. So we need to campaign about this, the toxic masculinity that is endemic also throughout institutions that allows this kind of thing to happen. I think we had Marie-Claire next, and then
Jose,
yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I did research on domestic abuse last year, and I know we're talking about Sweden, but I found out that the domestic abuse is actually linked with the homelessness under the UK law, under the Housing Act in 1996. So that's in the UK. And I think all of you have said all. I found out that according to Parliamentary Assembly, Council of Europe's Committee on Equal Opportunities for Women and Men, they said that violence against women is a question of power, where men want to dominate and control women. Obviously, this kind of explain the, you know, why women are more disadvantaged in many ways. So domestic abuse is kind of linked with that. And then there was an academic woman, I think it's called Helen Rees, that she argued that there is two factors significant in domestic violence. And she said that the victims are being isolated and inequality in a relationship. And I think I really agree with it, because the inequality, it's one thing against women. So, and men want to control women because, you know, if a woman is at home raising the kids, the man go to work and they're always controlling financially. And then when a woman is isolated, there is a lack of education, lack of knowing where to report when she's, you know, being violated. So all that contributes in, you know, women being beaten. And so obviously all this isolated and inequality in relationship now with family being at home 24 hours, 7 days during the pandemic, obviously the number has risen because they're in each other's faces all the time. And then sometimes, because a woman, if you're at home, that's your safe place, you kind of it's the controlling. You have a control of what you can do at home. And so if there is a controlling about men, then they're home, they want to take that control. And that's where contributes, because they want to be men. So whatever you look at that way, it's globally. But I think I agree with these two factors are quite, significant: domestic abuse, the victim being isolated, and also the inequalities in a relationship, which is still happening now.
Thank you, Marie-Claire, for giving us your view, especially about inequality. And I will say that actually creates another problem, because if it's seen as something to do with power and inequality, then you'll find that a lot of women who actually feel empowered and free when they experience domestic abuse, then they don't want to come out and say, yes, I've experienced it, because then you're seen as weak and not empowered. So then it contributes to all these hidden statistics where women, like Catherine said, even middle-class women, women with jobs, professional women, go through domestic abuse but will not come out and speak about it because they don't want to be seen as weak or disempowered. So thank you for your point.
For this, a quick one, which I think is important. It's actually, domestic abuse is not regarded as a crime. And I think that's a huge thing, because if it's not regarded as a crime, then it's not being taken seriously. Probably in changing the law, that should be changed, because when it comes to domestic abuse, I don't know why it's not regarded as a crime, because women end up being beaten and killed. There is so many cases where women were killed through domestic abuse. So there is a huge issue. Probably, when you talk about changing the law, it should be looked as a crime. Then when looked as a crime, probably that might prevent men committing, because they're going to be punished.
Just to clarify about the crime, there are like the specific, what do I say? I don't know how to put it, but there are laws against, for example, coercive control and aspects of abuse, but domestic abuse itself is not a crime. And please, we will have to edit this if that's not correct, but from what I know, domestic abuse itself is not a crime, but there are aspects around that domestic abuse behavior that are classed as a crime. And that's why sometimes it's also very hard to get these convictions in court. But we will clarify, and if we need to put a disclaimer or whatever, we will do that.
Yeah, I will give you the thing, but from what you were saying, it's just that there is a protection in the UK. They are called no molestation orders that were given, but from my research, it's not regarded as a crime. So I'll pass you the resources.
Okay, thank you, Marie-Claire. Jose, and then we probably need to wrap up, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to take long. I just wanted to point out and say this: most of women who are in an abusive relationship, this word, it has to be a warning for them. I'll kill you. If a man tells you I'll kill you in an abusive relationship, don't take it take it seriously. Take it seriously, because soon or later you're going to be killed. I've experienced that. I've got friends who experienced that. So that the word "I'll kill you" in an abusive relationship, take it serious. Take it serious, because you're going to be killed at the end of the day. Yeah,
yes,
that's what I wanted to point out.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for saying that. And please, we heed any woman watching this. That is something to please heed, that when a man says that, eventually will happen. And this has been the story all the time. As I said earlier, domestic abuse escalates. Nobody just starts beating you up like on the first day you're together. It starts with verbal abuse, psychological abuse, financial control. And over the years, if you stay, usually it ends up in physical abuse and sadly, in many cases, death as well. So please keep safe. Please look at the warning flags. Don't ignore them. Don't think because there's a cycle of abuse and then romance and, you know, you're the princess and the queen, you know, and then it just goes round and round in circles. Don't be fooled. Heed the warning, look at the red flags, listen to them, and leave safely. Speak to a friend, speak to someone you can get support from. In Liverpool, in Merseyside, you can contact us as well. Yes, Shiro, please.
I was going to agree with what you're saying, that domestic abuse escalates over time. I'm speaking from personal experience. It may start with someone shaking you. Next time they hit you against the wall, they push you against the wall. Then the next time it's a slap. Another time is big blows. Next time maybe you'll even see a knife. And that's it didn't reach that level with me, but it reached to blows. But it started with just being pushed. So the first time that happens, you already should see a red flag. And if possible, leave that relationship because it's not going to end well.
Thank you, Shiro. And I'm glad that people are speaking frankly about this. And please listen to people who are speaking from personal experience. I can see Catherine then.
I just wanted to add, because you said, you talked about the cycle of one day being the princess and the next day then it happens again. And that's what I also would like to say, that if it happens, don't believe the promises of that it'll be all better and it was a one-off and it's not going to happen again. I mean, if the person really thinks they can change, then they should seek help and should show that they're proper working on changing their behavior, because it's not happening just like that. They will need to go and ask for proper help to change.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, because a lot of the time victims put the onus on themselves and they start walking on eggshells and thinking, I need to manage my behavior so that he doesn't respond like that. No, the perpetrator is the one that needs to seek help and not you policing and, you know, managing your own behavior.
And even if you do things, even if a woman does something that really provokes the other person, that doesn't matter. You know, that can happen and they can talk it through, but it's no reason. It doesn't matter what she does. It's no reason that she gets hit or that she experiences that violence.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. There are many good points in the chat. I will save this chat because I think we need to revisit this topic. And just to clarify what Marie-Claire said, because I know a lot of you were wondering. So in the UK, there's no single criminal offense of domestic abuse. That's what we were saying as a whole. But there are many forms of behaviors that come under the criminal act, that is harassment, assault, criminal damage, attempted murder, rape, coercive control. So very, very strange that the UK does not have domestic abuse itself as a crime, just other surrounding things which someone can probably get out of. So that in itself should be a reason for us to campaign for change. Is there anyone else who wants, somebody has said
Okay, let me just go quickly because I just wanted, because I just thought of something like in Kenya, people used to believe that a woman, if you don't beat a woman, you don't love her. So that narrative is what is supposed to be removed, because we've seen somebody will hit you and then tomorrow they'll say, sorry, I didn't mean it, and then you forget about it, but you don't know your death is just coming around the corner.
Thank you, Maggie. Again, someone else has said, you know, don't believe this. Sorry, I didn't mean it. I did it because I love you and all sorts of nonsense. Please do not. There are several people who can tell you from lived experience that it will happen again and it will be worse the next time. So please leave. Yes, Jamila.
I just wanted to say, can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to talk about how, the way things like this are normalized in a lot of communities. We also like need to teach mothers, like a lot of the times, or even fathers, to teach their sons that it's wrong to abuse, because kids start at a young age pushing girls, and then people say boys will be boys, and then they think it's normal to push around girls and hit them and stuff like that, and then laugh about it later or apologize and then do it again. And I think that that has a lot to do with parenting as well, because if you neglect, for example, most of the time it's the son, then they end up becoming a violent person because you didn't teach them the right way. There's no point in having children if you're not going to raise them. If you're not going to teach them what's right from wrong, it's actually very, I don't know what that word is, but there's no point in you having a kid. It's actually like a waste if you're going to bring someone into this world and then not teach them, and then they become a horrible person. You're just adding to the worst parts of society, not the best parts.
Thank you, Jamila. And we do like to hear from the younger ones in this group. Your opinions are very valuable to us. And you're right, this kind of narratives like, oh, he likes you, that's why he pushed you, or Shakira said he hits you because he likes you, or, oh, boys will be boys. I remember that one was said when Jamila was one of you, either Jamila or McKenna, something happened and he was, boys will be boys. No, we need to stop this narrative, because those boys become men, and those men are the ones that abuse women and assault them. We have Shakira, and then I'm also curious, just to wrap up, if Namin has anything to add about domestic abuse in Azerbaijan. It would be really interesting to hear your point of view as well. So thanks, Shakira, as well.
It was just to add to what Jamila was saying as well, because I just feel like it's a sentence that I've heard a lot, which I actually agree with, that there's a lot of women who will like just let their sons be and raise their daughters to be moms for whoever they're going to be with. So the guys think they just get to obviously, like I have a sister and no brothers, so I haven't had that experience. We learned both gender stereotypical roles, but there's a lot of guys that just like get to sit on their butts and play video games and make a mess all the time without doing any household chores, while the girls don't have any free time, and they have to learn how to cook, clean, and take care of babies and babysit their younger siblings and stuff.
Yes, you're very right, Shakira. Those kind of little things that we think are small. The boy is playing, but the girl gets to help around the house and blah, blah, blah. The girls are taught how to cook, but the boys are not. These are the things we need to change. Parents need to get involved as well, because actually socialization happens at home, in the formative years, at home and in school. So those are the two places where children are socialized into what all the information they need to know about the world. So parents at home, we need to teach our children something different. Thank you, Shakira. To wrap up, Namin, do you have anything to add about Azerbaijan?
What she said lately. Do you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. In Middle East countries, in the traditional families, girls are like when they are about to get married, they get some suggestions from aunties, from grannies that, look, he is your husband. Whatever he does right. You just need to listen to him and try to get well with him. Most of the traditional families, this is what kind of suggestions the girls get, which I really think needs to be changed. And also, again, in many traditional families, they're like, if you go to that house, only your dead body can get out of that house. So it means that you cannot get divorced, because there's this social judgment that people can judge us. Oh my God, what this, like, nobody thinks that the man can be bad. If there is a divorce, if there is something wrong, the first thing comes to people's mind is that the woman, the girl, did something wrong. she had some problems. So luckily, I mean, I see recently it's getting to change because the girls are getting to be more educated. They are trying to learn about their rights, trying to stand up for their rights and speak up, which is good, but still there are a lot to do, I think. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Namin, for giving us your perspective as well. And so surprising. And, you know, this is something that also happens in other cultures where the woman is blamed if there's a divorce. And there's that fear of being ostracized by your community. So many women stay in abusive relationships just because of fear that the community will judge them. And then they won't have any friends or support. Yes, Nami?
Yeah, can I add also something? In some cases, they are not getting divorced, not because they can get judged, but because they don't have any financial support. Because most of the ladies can't get education, they can't get job because the husbands or the brothers or the fathers doesn't let them to work. So
Yeah.
they actually can't stand on their own feet. So that's the reason that they're like, oh my God, if I divorce, where I'm gonna go? Where I'm gonna live in? What about my children? So they just think that they need to stay and bear all the sufferings.
Thank you, Namin. And this thing with economic power, yeah, which Marie-Claire spoke about, and inequality, economic inequality, that's the reason why many women stay, not just in Azerbaijan or in Africa, in the UK as well. A lot of women stay in, and Europe and globally, a lot of women stay in abusive relationships because they don't know how they will get on if they leave. Where will they go? What will they do? How will they pay their bills? That's a very real issue, and that is all due to the economic power that they do not have. Okay, Keshi, then Catherine to finalize, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to use a reverse. Earlier we talked about imported values. And then now I want to reverse it and say we have also women who come to Europe. They may be in Sweden. They are married to a Swede or somebody who lives there. And then their status is unsure. They have no economic power, like you said. So these kind of women may end up leaving because they are told, if you leave and they have children, I'll take you directly back to where you come from, and the children remain here. So when we look at such an issue of domestic violence and we talk about imported values, we also have to look at the other side, that there are people who are opposite of what the popular what did you call it, narrative is about imported values, that there are values also there that may hinder and may promote domestic violence among people who are in mixed marriages or in intercultural marriages. So that also has to be looked at, not just the impact of immigration from a negative viewpoint, from the immigrant being seen as a negative influence.
Thank you, Keshi. That's a very good point, and also a big issue that we always consider as a women's organization. The amount of women we know who suffer abuse because of their immigration status, they cannot leave. They're trapped in that situation, not only because of their status, but then again because of they don't have any economic power. And as Marie-Claire said, additionally, they don't have a social support network, so they're isolated. So these are all issues that it's not just one thing that contributes to it. I would like to revisit this subject again. Was there someone else who wanted to say something?
And it's almost another complete topic, because this is just another example, the economic problem that many women, and that's not just that could be anyone, that women stay because they're not sure how they can survive without the financial income of their husband. And it's an attack against, I say people, but which are mainly women who decide they want to stay home with their kids and look after their kids, and that is not being valued. So they end up with a gap in their CV. They end up being dependent on their husbands just because They either couldn't afford the childcare or didn't want it, really just wanted to do the best job for their children and stay home with them. And they end up being financially punished because we not even value it as an issue. We don't value it financially, that women decide to be mothers and stay at home with their children.
Thank you, Catherine. This is a topic we definitely need to come back to. This topic, there's many layers. We were even meant to touch on other, the rapey culture in Denmark, and there's a big report that came out about the hidden rape statistics in Denmark and the law that supports it. So we're going to look at the economic power that women do not have. And we also talk about how the law does not protect women. We need to come back to this subject again in future. So thank you very much, everyone, for contributing. All your opinions are valid. We had some food for thought from Kenya about the imported values, which is true. Keshi then flipped it and said this same immigration thing can also contribute to abuse, where migrant women have to stay with abusive native men because they have no economic power, and that's used against them. So thank you very much for joining us today. We had very interesting discussions. Thank you, panelists, for sharing with us your opinions from all sides of the globe. Please like, subscribe, share. Please support our channel. We're trying to grow our channel, so we really appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.